Now, here we go. Anyway, I had computer trouble. I didn't have computer trouble yesterday. We had internet trouble, and it was getting to the point where the thing was disconnecting all the time, and then it got to the point where it only took Google, any Google or its subsidiaries like Blogger and YouTube. That was the only thing you could access, and it was not on our end, it was on the ISP's end. And by this morning, it was all fixed. But I did happen to see a YouTube vid of Rachel Maddow and Lawrence O'Donnell, and they were talking about this article. This was last night. And I thought, what in the hell? What in the goddamn hell? Well, I have said I was skeptical, okay, that the court would actually have the nerve to overturn abortion rights outright. And they may still not do it. They may just revert it to the states and say it's a states' rights issue. But this leaked out. And this dickhead named Alito, Sam Alito, he clearly hates women. He clearly hates them. I mean, women are just, to him, they're things to fucking pop kids out. That's all they're for. And there's a large segment of this population that does not see women as human. And that's what abortion's about. It isn't about the fetus. It's never been about that. It's about whether you see women as human or whether they're just a goddamn little submissive little housewife that they cook and clean and that's their career. I'm old enough to remember. That women's options were very limited. And, oh, you had to get married. And by God, you better marry by age 20 or 22. Definitely 25, that was old. That was old back then. When I was coming of age, it was still, in the early 20s was the median age for first marriage for women. And men's was only a couple of years older than that. And in 1960, it was only 20, which meant half of women were married before age 20 and half after. And men were like 22 back then. And hundreds of thousands of women were pregnant on their wedding day. Oh, Christ. Oodles and oodles of teen marriages. Oodles of forced marriages. Women that gave up babies for adoption. Oh, Christ. And we want to bring that back? Of course, James Dobson loves it. He loved that era. He grew up that era. He was born in 1936, I think. So he grew up during the 50s. And I was I'm like 20 years younger than him. And so I didn't really grow up in the 50s. I was a little kid. And in the 60s is when I grew up. And I'm old enough to remember all this kind of stuff that went down about abortion. And I've talked about Sherry Finkbein. I talked about her in a video a while back. And how that was the catalyst to legalize abortion in the United States. And I'm surprised the AMA hasn't weighed in on this stuff, because they were the ones that really got the laws changed in the states. Not feminists, but the AMA. And originally it was the doctors who sought to criminalize abortion in the 19th century, but it wasn't really that much concern about the fetus. Some of it was anti-immigration hysteria, and some of it was the fact abortion was so dangerous for women. And yeah, you can read about that. I think it was James Moore, M-O-H-R, wrote a book called Abortion in America, and I've talked about that. How that was. And how that came to be. But, it's been almost 50 years. And my generation grew, or at least the second half of the baby boomers, we took advantage of it, and of legal abortion. Previous generations, if you're wealthy enough, you could always go overseas and get an abortion. You know, you could always do it. You could always pay some doctor to do it. And there were a few isolated instances of doctors willing to do it. But usually it was women went to quacks, or they tried to self-abort, or they just married the damn idiot to give the baby a name. But remember, this is what these anti-abortion people want, is they want to return to the 1950s because they have this nostalgia that everybody had a place. Women knew their place. They're baby makers. That's all they're good for. That's all they're stinking good for. And to fuck. You know, because they have to put out sexually, right? And anyway, I guess old Alito, if I wanted to dig it up, and his little screed, he hearkened to this judge from the 1700s, who apparently he was a big advocate that men had a right to rape their wives and all that shit, and you know, capital punishment for young teens or whatever, you know, whatever. It was like 1700 deal, and that's the kind of mentality, because there's still, like I said, there's still a lot of people who believe that women are sexual property of men. That's all, you know, that's all you are. And men, and I don't want to bash men, I shouldn't say, no, it's not all men, but a substantial number of men. And let's face it, it's both on the left and on the right. Whether it's the James Dobsons of the world, who just think, oh, you know, it was the worst thing ever for women to work outside the home, or a porn sick addled young guy. You know, it doesn't matter. Men are not getting laid like they used to, or like they think they're entitled to, I should say. This is really what the problem is. Men aren't getting laid like they think they are owed, because more and more women are opting not to get married, not to have kids, hell, not even to have sex with men. Now, if you really think that banning abortion anywhere is going to change that trajectory, that trend that's been going on for well over 100 years, with the exception of the post-war era till about the mid-70s, there's no way they're going to reverse that trend. And it's all over the world outside of Africa that birth rates are plummeting. And marriage rates are plummeting in the West. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. You can yammer all you want about family, about the decline of the family. Well, women aren't going to do it. Women aren't going to sit back and take this shit. And let's see, old Amanda Marcotte's usually full of shit. She's usually wokey doke. But she believes that they don't plan to stop at Roe. So, to me, they'll go after Griswold. They'll go after all kinds of shit. Because, after all, we couldn't elect a woman as president, right? We couldn't do that. That horrible Hillary, and, I mean, she got the most votes, but thanks to the Electoral College, we got a dipshit in there who put in 3 justices. And who are injustices. And anyway, I didn't read Alito's thing. And like I said, I think I said John Roberts, maybe I didn't, the Chief Justice, confirms that it's real. It wasn't made up, but he's upset that it was leaked. Oh, how bad. And maybe there's a chance the Democrats will take Congress retain Congress after all, and maybe increase their numbers. Because this is pissing people off. It's never been a majority of people have been anti-abortion in this country, or anti-legal abortion. It's never been at least since the 70s. It's never been a majority. It's always been a minority. And it's a smaller and smaller and smaller minority. Just because women, it's enabled women to participate in the outside world. But men can't have that. Too many men can't have that. Women belong in the home with their mouths shut and their legs open. That's where they belong. In their world. Even though, at the same time, many of these politicians and stuff have women with, I'm thinking like Ted Cruz, who has a wife with a pretty glamorous career. Or Ben Shapiro, whose wife is an MD. You know, hey, they're not traditional households. So, anyhow, but it doesn't matter. Even if they did, they still have a hatred, deep-seated hatred for women. And anyway, old Marcotte says, although heavy with legalese, Alito's misogyny shines through like a deplorable beacon. His contempt for the very idea that women are rights-bearing people is not hard to discern, even as he claims to hold no ill will towards them. Well, after all, a woman gave birth to him. Sown throughout this decision is a deep, abiding belief that women simply aren't people in any meaningful sense. They're not. Not to this. Not to men on the right, not to men on the left. They're both that way. The problem is male attitudes. That you're a thing to fuck. That's your only purpose. And bearing babies. They have no, you're a thing to rape. You're a thing, you have no right to public space. Hence, I can segue into that Samsung that had that ad that showed a woman running at 2 a.m. and a lot of women, even so-called feminists, were upset about that because what a terrible message that sent. No, it's your belief that women don't have a right to public space, no matter what time of the day it is, no matter how they're dressed, no matter what they're doing. That's the problem. Not the woman going out and using public space. It's not her responsibility to control predators. Same thing here. It's like all women are things. They're things to use. And then cast them aside if they're used up by age 40 or 35 or whatever. Just cast them aside, find somebody else. Some other willing fool to take up with. But anyway, she says, women's lives, ambitions, pain, joys, and autonomy have no value he can discern. Instead, he treats women as ambulatory uteruses who have no more right to reject a pregnancy than your refrigerator has a right to reject holding your milk and eggs. That's all you are. You're just a thing. And we need to, and that's what the abortion rights people need to say. Not even say about choice, but about, do you see women as human? And the answer is they don't. You're just a thing to fuck. You're a thing to bear kids. You're a little servant around the house. All the 1950s shit. Well, as I said, lots of luck stopping abortion in this country. Since most abortion now is medicated, they don't go to a doctor, in the older days, and have the operation. Nowadays it's induced miscarriage via RU-486. Is what it used to be called. The abortion pill. Lots of luck stopping this train. A train left the station, oh my God, 60 years ago on this. And it ain't going back. It ain't going back to the shotgun marriages. It ain't going back. And men ain't gonna, and it's beyond past whatever for men to get to put their dicks in any woman they want anytime they feel like it. And especially if they're married. Lots of luck. And I think more and more women will vote with their feet. and say, hell with you. I'm not going to do that shit. That was the way I was when I was 8 years old. I didn't want anything to do with that way of life. There was no way I wanted that. I didn't want my mom's life. I didn't want it. I didn't want my sister's life. Even though I'm not living in the lap of luxury. There's a price to pay for rejecting that. But to these guys, those who play must pay. Those women must pay. You must be open to being a mother, because that's what you're for. Remember, you have intuition, and you have an instinct. You're not a rational, thinking, logical human being. You're just a subhuman. You just have feelings, and you're governed by your uterus. You're not intelligent to do anything. And, I know I'm all over the place. This thing kind of upsets me. And this has been 16 minutes of this. So it's going to take all night for this thing to upload. So I'll put this stuff on there. If my blood pressure goes down enough, I'll actually read Alito's screed. And we'll see. We'll see if this was deliberately leaked out as a trial balloon to see how outraged the public is, or whether they're really going to do this and they're going to screw the Republicans over, because the Republicans have cynically played this anti-abortion card since Reagan. There used to be lots and lots of pro abortion rights among Republicans, decades ago. Lots and lots. But we're going to see if that cynical attempt of pandering to these fundamentalist types, we're going to see how they really feel, these politicians, now that that issue may be out of the way. How are they going to win any more elections? Well, they'll say, oh, well, the Democrats want to legalize abortion, so I'm here to preserve the fetus, the babies. I want to save babies. They don't give a shit about fetuses. They never did. But it's going to take one of their big issues out of the way. If this actually goes through. We're going to see what happens. We're going to see what happens if the court actually overturns a civil right. But as we've seen, the left also has done it with this QT, or queer theory stuff, or gender identity stuff, wiping out women's rights there. So you think those people see women as human? Hell no. They're a thing to mock. They're just a goddamn thing to impersonate. And to fetishize. So we're a thing there. We're things on both sides of the spectrum. And like I've said, I just think, God, I'm my age. Because I don't want to be a young woman now. And have to deal with all this minefield. But anyway, I got to get the hell off of here. This is about the longest video I've ever done. So that's it.